doing some of your work through some of the year, now it's not your day-to-day life, but you're get that work that you've done with God, healing, transformation, breaking vows and agreements, just the journey that we're on and have been on. Now you get to go into these holidays, and that can get tested in that space.
Sure it can.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful ends for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson here, hanging out with S.J. Jennings. And, I got to tell you, bro, we're here in the tower where we're doing this. And a couple days ago, I'm in the bathroom. And it didn't hit me until I kind of got right up to my turn. And it must have been an old, but it sounded like Harry Connick. It was Frosty the Snowman. And I'm like, oh my gosh. The holidays are here.
Yeah, man.
Right? It's not. It started pre-Thanksgiving, but I just chuckled. I was like, oh my gosh, here we go.
I think Jimmy Durante did the original one.
Oh, he's the voice, isn't he? Yeah,
Jimmy Durante.
I think he's the narrator.
Yeah, he is. But I think he sings it, Frosty the Snowman.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah. Well, this was kind of like big band
jazz.
style.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this is not.
Here we are.
Restroom.
All of a sudden.
Restroom worthy music. But
anyway, it's the beginning of December now. But that was a couple weeks ago.
I did hit it another time and caught the Gene Autry of Rudolph.
I like Gene Autry. Yeah.
Well, everybody does. It's in the classics.
Yeah, man. No doubt.
So we were talking the other day with our friends on the porch, the King's porch.
Yeah.
We were talking about what we're looking forward to in terms of food. So that was a great conversation.
That was a great conversation.
About the time of year, right? The holidays. And that's what this podcast series is, by the way, friends, just navigating the holidays. And really, I would like to add to that with Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. This isn't like a, Better Homes and Gardens top 10 tips on how to survive.
We were talking about some of there's the traditions and some things like food, but it was great to hear our team talk about what they look forward to. Like, what's that dish that never gets made any time of year? Right.
Yeah.
And yet does in the holidays. We had some funny ones.
Well, a mincemeat pie is one of them. Yeah. I mean, you can have a blueberry pie in summertime or whatever.
I don't want one of those.
You can have an apple pie or, but.
You said your dad loved them. My dad loved them. I don't know why. It's just.
Yeah. It's not my favorite. No. And as a kid, I remember thinking, well, I like meat. And I like pie, and then I bit into
nothing about it. No,
it's not meat.
It's granola,
kind of granola fruit.
Thrown in some kind of put a bunch of water in it and bake it up.
Maybe that's what they do with those
raisins,
those
walnuts.
Yeah, whatever that bread is that they give year after year.
Most people don't like that stuff by themselves, and throwing them together and making it a pie. And then,
but it was my dad's favorite. He loved it. Man.
Why don't you call that raisin walnut pie?
That's maybe what it should be called.
But it's mincemeat. Crazy. And then,
email us with your favorite pie. Exploring more.
Or your favorite holiday dish that just does not get made. Like you don't see a lot of sweet potato casseroles
or stuffed turkeys.
Yeah, we had that conversation. The difference between
stuffing and dressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stuffing is actually stuffed in there.
Yeah, it seems to be a northern thing. Because Greg, who's raised in our buddy in Western North Carolina, Yeah, they never stuffed the turkey, but they always made this dressing, which he said was like a brick of bread.
Yeah.
You know?
So did you hear what Greg said about, he was talking about something, I don't know, about brunch or something he said, and he goes something about egg centers.
Yes. He couldn't remember the word yolk. So he just said, those yellow egg center things.
Yeah. So he said, when they put those egg centers in, I'm like, what is that? Where do you get those? That is a country thing, I guess.
I wonder if we would be the first one on the internet to use the hashtag egg center. I would think hashtag egg center. Do a search and see what comes up.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's.
I bet you they have it at Whole Foods. There's probably something like that at a Whole Foods or a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, Fresh Market
could be one of those things.
Anyway, food is fun. It's a fun thing to talk about at the holidays.
So the holidays, here we go, man. Here it comes. And we've done this every year. We've taken over the last, how many, are we 5 years old? The podcast series?
Four plus, coming on 5, yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking to the girls about doing, navigating the holidays. And they said, yeah, it's kind of been, you guys, we've done that. I said, well, that's kind of a tradition. Yeah. And we're a little smarter.
End of year.
When we were.
Yeah, they didn't agree with that part, but mileage they agreed to, but they didn't.
Yeah. And I was very offended by that. And
no, but just like, and we talk about it, even in the context of our weekends, the Heart of a Warrior weekend and all that. I mean, guys come back over and over again because even if some of the content is the same, and the content does change, but even if the content's the same, you're in a different place. So,
and so are we.
I'm in a very different place this holiday season. My mom passed away in February. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so I think as we step into this idea of navigating the holidays, there's a lot that we could talk about, to your point, that is kind of personal experience, personal journey. I just got the call, had to call my mom and dad and say, hey, we're not, the Thompsons are not going to join the Thompsons this year. And it was a sad call. I've tried to do that every year. I get to go back to Oklahoma a few times a year, but my dad's birthday is December 17th. That was always a great way to jump in there. And I feel for all those people who have those mid to late December birthdays.
Yeah, I'm December 8th.
Yeah, that's close. You can almost get a birthday and Christmas.
Yep.
But man, the closer you get after December.
I know.
15th,
our teammate Tom Benner, I think he's the 28th of December.
No,
that's just tough.
You get dual gifts, and that's not happiness. No. That's not good. So, but I had to call and say, we won't be able to get home this year. And the reason, SJ, was my brother-in-law passed suddenly in October. And so we all, the three girls and Robin and I, kind of came from different places to be with my family, and jump on those flights and all that stuff. And so it had it was financially eventful in a way that prevented us from doing another financial eventful of going to Christmas at home. But making that call, here's my point in navigating the holidays. Making that call, I felt bad.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that I was disappointing them. I felt like, I wish it was different. I wish we could, but we can't. And so, so when I think about navigating the holidays, there's stuff like that.
Yep.
Having to make plans and, if people were videoed with hidden cameras in the conversations they were having about your house or my house, are we going to your folks or my folks? I mean, some of that stuff would not be fit for watching.
Those families that try to get everywhere, right? It's like your parents, my grandparents, your grandparents. I mean, it turns into this slog of a day where you're just trying to check all the boxes.
And for some, there's a scorecard from previous years.
Right.
Like, well, we did this last year, or we did that last year, or we were, this is our year to go to Thanksgiving. And then, so it makes for a very interesting variable.
Yeah.
When it comes to Thanksgiving and being thankful,
Mm-hmm.
or Christmas and having this idea of celebrating the birth of Jesus and giving gifts in His name. There's just a lot of distractible and even potential collisions
Mm-hmm.
that can happen in this navigating, the holidays and navigating Christmas. As good as that one dish is a year, oh my gosh, can be quite the effort to get there.
Yeah, quite the tax you have to pay,
Right.
to get that mincemeat pie. But,
on a micro level, I feel like, I can remember those Sunday mornings where you're trying to get to church and it's just so, why do we do this every Sunday? And then we've got,
especially when the kids are little,
right? Then we've got to walk in and kind of pretend that
Mm-hmm.
everything's good when, the last hour and a half wasn't very good.
Yeah. You've been gritting your teeth the whole time.
So the holidays have that macro kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
this once a year deal, but to get there. And so I thought we could offer some encouragement and hope. But we still want to try to get our arms around some of the things and the reasons why it needs to be navigated
Mm-hmm.
well. And I think that's one is family. Family of origin is one of the places where there's a lot of damage. There's a lot of wounding. There's a lot of pain in going and being with your family.
So there's something we've talked about a lot, in the context
Not every
of this
family,
journey.
by the way.
No,
all
not every
families,
family.
but
no.
some, and sooner or later,
Most of them, I would
Yeah.
imagine. There's got to be some of that, but we talk about this journey and becoming more and more free, and gaining understanding of how the false self operates, and what can provoke your false self. We talked about the four scenarios in any relationship, true self, and so on and so forth. And it just occurs to me that, when I think about my journey of trying to, lessen the effect and the triggering of my false self through the journey of exploring the woundedness that created my false self and all that, I'm making pretty good headway. Like, I'm not flipping people off in traffic as often anymore and stuff like that. So, so I'm making progress there. And then there's my family, So it's like, I can operate in this place where I'm making a lot of progress and on this journey and getting a lot of healing.
yeah,
And it's almost like my journey of healing in the context of my family is segmented somehow. And around the holidays, like I'm going to see him this weekend, actually for the first time since my mom passed away in February.
right.
So it's like I'm just going into it with this sense of, okay, am I going to have an opportunity to say some of the things I've been wanting to say? Or do I just pretend like everything's great because we're at this event,
Yeah,
this family gathering? How am I going to keep the false self in the cage?
yeah.
How do I manage that? Do I keep it in the cage? Do I let some things come out so that it might provoke some harder conversations that I know need to be had?
Yeah.
Or do I just try to do the Zen Jesus thing of, I'm just going to turn the other cheek over and over again.
I've never
let
heard
the
you
water
say Zen Jesus. That's pretty funny. The Zen Jesus.
It makes me think
thing.
of Tommy,
Yeah.
Tom Benner, our buddy. But, just kind of this like, I'm at peace. It's okay. Yeah. None of this affects me, which, in my personal journey, that's kind of an act more than the truth. So there's a lot to that idea of even if we're journeying this way, when we get around particularly family, I mean, it's unfortunate. They can be some of the most loving, wonderful relationships on the planet, or they can be the primary chief wounders in your life.
Some of the hardest, right?
Yeah.
Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? that's what I'm after. That's what I want to talk about in part 2. That's the navigating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we put more effort sometimes into our phones and where we're trying to go and Google Maps, and so that we're here, we've got to get there. What is our route? You know, do I want to pay tolls? So
even as like you're going up for food, how am I going to get to this before it's gone?
Yes. Yeah. The navigation.
That's what we
but that internal navigator.
Focus more on.
The internal navigator, you know, within this particular season does not need to be given a vacation.
Right.
It needs to be invited into this space, and everything that you were talking about. I want to talk about that and get to that in the second part of this 2-part series, how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we're talking about now is why.
Okay.
Why should you do that?
Right.
And you nailed it because this is a volatile space.
Mm-hmm.
This is, we talk about triggering. We talk about, unforgiveness. We can talk about history with people who don't quite remember the record the same.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
And
is a commonality.
Oh my gosh.
Consistent.
And the agreements and the vows that can come out.
Mm-hmm.
You always get to do that. I never, you know, I mean,
what are you so mad about? That wasn't that big of a deal.
I mean,
what are you talking about? You know,
people walking out of the room because they don't want to be subject to that, or they're afraid they're going to kill somebody in the room. You know, I mean, these are very interesting times. And I think for a lot of people, the last couple years, the holidays with COVID, you added that to the mix. I remember, you know, the last 2 years, plans being literally just washed out because of older family members in the grandparent category, and you don't want to subject them to that.
Right.
Both holidays last year, there were COVID tests taken in our family, and it shut it all down. So we stayed home.
And even the arguments across the, you know, there's an aisle down the middle of how people feel about COVID.
And whether there was any positive tests or not. Yes.
Hey, I'm not taking that test, or I'm not wearing a mask.
Well, you know,
why aren't you wearing a mask?
Uncle Charles isn't vaccinated, or you know, there's just all of that stuff that adds to an already pretty volatile space. And it just seemed like if I was bringing this into a spiritual realm and we could kind of put the filters on and see, it just seems like the kingdom of darkness really has a big time during the holidays. Man,
yeah. Yeah, I just see them, you know, like my dad would, we'd have Christmas or Thanksgiving. My dad would eat the turkey and all that stuff, and then football would be on, watching the Detroit Lions lose. But he would always fall asleep in his chair. I mean, that's just what he did. That's Thanksgiving. You have a big meal,
it's a food coma.
On some food, put on some football, and you go to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and I just sort of envision the enemy and his minions kind of in their lazy boy recliners with their popcorn, you know, munching on it, you know, like, hey, watch this, you know, someone's going to ask about, you know, the political landscape.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Just watch it.
Oh, yeah.
And it just goes off like a nightmare.
Yeah. But it's amazing how that diversity and history just adds to a volatility.
Yeah.
You know,
and I'm making light of it. There's no joke about this.
But if you don't have
kingdom of darkness,
if you don't have a plan, if you don't know that, you know, there can be these lures thrown at you with bait, and even the judgments that you can hold against people, they're not in your life 11 3/4 of the months. And they're in your life, you know, and you're coming together. I mean, it can be a brutal space with cousins and aunts and I mean, people who, you know, unfortunately in those families or step families and different things like that. I mean, you know, it wasn't just you got the bigger room and I had to sleep on the top bunk, or I mean, there's some things that happened to people in families that are dark, secretive, and very, very, very challenging to then, unbeknownst to others, you're going, we're going to Uncle Bob's, or we're going to Grandma's, and why are you making such a big deal about it? So it's got a lot of potential pitfalls, and so navigating this is real. I like what you said too earlier about doing some of your work through some of the year. Now it's not your day-to-day life, but you get that work that you've done with God, healing, transformation, breaking vows and agreements, just the journey that we're on and have been on. Now you get to go into these holidays, and that can get tested in that space.
Sure it can.
That can get. You talked about your mom and seeing your family. How are you doing with that? I mean, this is the first Christmas.
Yeah, just to back up a little bit, even as I described, going into this season and kind of navigating being with my family again, it is different because of the work that I've done, in the last year or so, one-on-one with God. It is different.
Does it?
It does feel a little different. Just even I hadn't thought about it till the way that you suggested that you liked the way I was talking about navigating it. Because in the past, I just probably would have gone into it, with my dukes up or whatever. And now it's more
the enduring mode. Get in, get out.
I just got to get in and get out of here.
And see if we can, as minimal of loss as possible.
Yeah. And for me to get into a place where I'm a little more introspective and even considering, I wonder if I want to talk to him about this. Is this going to be the right time? If the time presents itself for me to discuss, something that happened earlier in the year between me and this other person in my family, would it be the appropriate time to talk about it or not? And how would I go about doing that? And so there is an aspect of it where, yes, you can kind of segment off some of the things to do with your family from your day-to-day life. To your point, you can go 11 months and then all of a sudden you have this season where you're around your family a lot more and then you're not around them again. But I think if you're really doing some work and journeying and learning and growing, then you're just different, right? It's less a uniform you put on, and it's more the tactics and skills that you've learned, right? You're not just like, okay, I'm going to take off my, I'm growing in Jesus, and then I'm just going to put on my, armor so I can survive my family, and then we're going to put my growing in Jesus uniform back on. You really, I think, bring that growth into that situation. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I don't know how that's going to go, but I think it'll be, it'll be fun to talk about when I get back. But
I have some more questions about that, and I want to talk about that in terms of some of the holidays and where grief or loss comes in. I want to talk about that after the break.
Yeah.
And so we'll be right back with Exploring More podcast in just a minute.
You can make a difference. Come with us to help give hearts an opportunity to connect, belong, and flourish in ways that help to end isolation. Experiencing being loved is the most powerful antidote for isolation.
You can partner with us and fuel this mission by becoming a monthly, annual, or end-of-year donor. Together, we can continue to create environments and resources for men, women, and marriages so they can discover the love they were created for and end their isolation. Go to www.zoweh.org/end isolation and join us and make a difference. Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast, navigating the holidays.
Yeah.
And we ended before the break with just it's really not a good plan to think that you can, move through your life, put some things on hold, and then just endure this time or somehow get in and get out. It's really not a good plan, because if that's what you're bringing into the holidays, if you think that the enemy can't see that, or is it working that, or somebody's offended by that, it's your
own heart. It's just not good for your own heart.
It is challenging to have some of those questions and to take those to Jesus and to say, okay, landmines up ahead. Jesus, what do you think? Why am I so upset about this, or angry, or frustrated? What is going on? It's just, it can be a really great time as you're trying to make some observations about how to get not just through, but how to enter into this space.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And you already kind of talked about a few things. I've thought about this. I've thought about that. And that's kind of what I'm after.
Yeah.
In this series is you can actually live that way all the time, not just the holidays. Let me give you the ending of part 2. This is a way to live.
It is a way
in
to
the
live.
kingdom.
Yeah.
And so when you consider you personally, your mom passed, and you had a heck of a year. There was a lot of death, kind of culminated.
Yeah, friends and family, both.
By this very important person. And now here's the family going to come back around. Are we going to talk about it? Are we, is it going to be the elephant in the room? I've got some questions. And so, all of that. And sometimes I would say, you don't know how you're going to feel.
Right.
There's that grace.
Yep.
And I don't know how I'm going to feel when I see them. I don't know how I'm going to feel if they say something.
Yeah.
You were talking about different things that kind of got divvied up amongst was it figurines? What was the thing that
paperweights.
Paperweights.
Yeah, my mom collected paperweights. It was one of those things where she collected them even starting before I was born. And, somebody decided, well, that'll be a great gift for her birthday.
Yeah.
So for the next 40 years, she got paperweights on her birthday and Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were probably 60 of them that we had to, or got to kind of dole out to family members,
Yeah.
So,
it was fun. I had a great idea for you.
Yeah.
And again, there's the creative ways in which we can navigate this. Is different than enduring. I mean, it would be interesting if your family, all white elephant or what's that Santa game that we played, and everybody does a paperweight to honor mom.
Right.
In the first Christmas after.
Right. Swap it off
or
bring one and exchange them.
Yeah, because they're all thinking about the grief. They're all thinking about mom's. I mean, what's the dish that she loved? What's the way we can honor her this first Christmas, or him, whoever that is.
Right.
I've got a brother-in-law that passed.
Yeah.
And so how do we all wear Oklahoma State University sweatshirts on Christmas morning to honor that?
Sure. She was a big Patriots fan.
So. And you have Patriots gear.
I have plenty of Patriots stuff.
But that's those are the kind of ideas that often come on the other side of pondering, and how do I feel, and what does it look like to get through this with my family? How can we? And even that's a volatile thing. If you sent something to the family, say, "Hey, I got an idea." There's that one family member like, I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. Yeah. I picked the ones I wanted and I want to keep them or whatever. When I think about navigation, Michael, I grew up, in a coastal community in Massachusetts. And so I think about the water, right? And so when you think about specifically a ship going through the water, not a boat, I'm talking about a ship now, they don't turn on a dime. So there's lots of navigational aids.
Yeah.
There's lighthouses, foghorns, buoys, channel markers, right? There's charts.
Yep.
There's navigational maps. There's all this stuff.
tides.
And right. How to utilize the tides and things. And then as you get closer to the ports, there's a pilot that comes out in a smaller boat, gets onto the ship and pilots it into the harbor most of the time.
Mm-hmm. That's his job.
He or she knows the harbor really way better than any, overseas captain could learn. So, to continue the metaphor, as you're sailing into this thing, the ship is going to go. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like in your car where you just stomp on the brakes and it stops. You don't have brakes.
No.
So you're moving towards this thing, you're moving forward, and to have that point of view, what we've called the observation deck before, but to have that point of view where you're taking all these things into account and you're utilizing all these different tools that you've been giving, that's all that work and that growth that I was talking about before you come into this situation around the holidays. The channel markers, the lighthouse, all of those things are tools to help you navigate, right? That you bring that knowledge, you bring that awareness, you bring that training, you bring that healing into the situation, right? So as I think about, coming into this end of the year and the holidays and navigating that, I'm trying to bring all of the things that I've learned into those moments with my family so that I don't run aground, so that I don't ram another vessel, so that I don't spill cargo, continue on with the metaphor, however far you like. And I think that for us, as we talk about, living this way and journeying with Jesus, that is the key to navigation in the holiday season. Mm-hmm. I really think, whatever the things are that are your trouble spots. I mean, getting to that place where you can even see that's a huge thing, right? And a huge part of the journey. But I'm not saying I have those trouble spots resolved, but the awareness that I have of them and the journey I've been on since last Christmas and the last holiday season is going to help me navigate. Like, I understand the charts better. I understand the navigational aids in a way that's going to help me better navigate these waters that I'm heading into. Mm-hmm. And the encouragement I want to give to our audience is, wherever you are on the journey that we talk about all the time, this journey of more love, more life, more freedom with Jesus, there's always an opportunity to, bring what you've learned into a given situation.
The next environment, the next place. And what is that environment potentially going to offer you?
Yeah.
So what's so good about that whole navigational, all those variables and learning how to pay attention to them is it's really so that you won't hurt people and people won't hurt you.
Right.
And yet, this thing we're calling the holidays is a dangerous port. Mm-hmm. And so to just get in front of it in a way of thinking about it and asking Jesus about it and talking about it with him, I think is a huge first step towards maybe a different kind of holiday experience. I mean, there are the songs that play in the bathroom. There's this, all of a sudden the world is decorated in wreaths and red bows. And so here's this opportunity that is coming to all of us to navigate this space and to pay attention to a lot of things. How does that make me feel? What am I hearing? I was thinking about how to articulate this in those sticky points, those heart aching places. Mm-hmm. And instead of even trying to avoid all those, to collect them as data points.
Right. Update your charts.
And to say, and to bring them to Jesus. Mm-hmm. if you're going to go, it's one thing to go on a road trip to grandma's and then you're out of there, and you could experience some of this, but, there could be some gold. Now you've got to slay the dragon to get to it, whatever that might be, in terms of what's in the way of the freedom that I could have. Well, Uncle Bob's not going to change, or, Aunt Kathy's this or that. This is really about, and I just used two of my family members. No personal anything.
I was wondering when you were saying
Bob
those names,
or Kathy.
They're fairly common names.
I thought Uncle, and immediately Bob came to mind, and Aunt, and immediately Kathy came to mind.
No,
so anyway,
funny.
And now I can hear Aunt Sherry like, well, why didn't he say Aunt Sherry?
You're right.
So anyway, all of this to say, I wonder in navigating the holidays, what might they be offering you in terms of gifts for your heart, for healing, for restoration, and it be a holiday season unlike any other, because you've moved at it with a level of intention where all of those variables you were describing, not just in the open sea, you're going to port here and you need some help parking this thing that has, the ability to hurt a lot of people or to get hurt, along the way. And so, such a level of sentiment in these spaces, memories, histories, things that, when somebody's not going to be there anymore. And what does, when one family member wants to just get through it and another one wants to honor that person, how do you navigate that space in a kind and civil way when it feels like it is flammable, in a
very volatile
situation. And so you can't make, other people play the board games or do the paperweights, but I wonder what it's like to try to, and to do it in a way of honoring and letting some of those things say more about that person than your heart, and how, the ways in which we step into the arena, it feels like that's the appropriate thing, the arena and the gravitational pull towards, what the enemy's doing and the history that has been, a part of this thing called family. And how to navigate it going into this particular new year, new season.
Two things I thought about while you were sharing that. The first thing is you say it all the time, and we've said it on the podcast before. You don't have to swing at every pitch. That's a great thing to remember going into this season. And to just let a couple of them go by. And how that feels versus trying to knock everyone out of the park or knock everyone right back in the pitcher's face. You can just let them go by. Right. And then the other thing I thought about was the series we did before this one about isolation.
I thought the same thing.
And man, when we were talking about in that context of, isolation, being in a room full of people and feeling like you're alone, I just get the sense there's a lot of families where people go, and they feel that way. They're unknown and feel unloved by their families.
It's a tall order or tall invitation, I should say, to, try to be that person that, is genuinely and sincerely going to ask, how are you doing? And to sit and listen to that person. And they may rant about the politics. And it may not be what you wanted, and so that's a hard one.
Well, doubt.
But to move in those spaces of intention, to look at it as a pretty serious game of cat and mouse, of engaging with other hearts, because you don't know what somebody might be willing to share and tell you that's not the gossipy thing, but is really about, depending on what kind of questions you ask.
Right.
Hey, how are you doing now that it's been some months? You had any thoughts about mom or thoughts about dad or thoughts about, I know, they're not with us this year. It's just very interesting to, it's a tall order to say, what would it look like to not just endure, but to engage in this navigating the holidays, in the people that you're with. And I think you make up a great point. If you're isolated and you're with a room full of people, family, that's one thing. And there's others that are isolated in some other ways. They are not just lonely, they are very alone, and whether those couple days that are with family, but it's the after or it's the before, in which that isolation is the heaviest.
Right.
I'd like to talk some more about how to navigate some of those things. Maybe we can end this one with just one of those.
I liked what you said about listening, because it's kind of been on our hearts for a long time, and Robin in particular, but also Cole, yourself, others, Sherry, really the team has worked on what we refer to as the listening guide. And we're going to make it available on our website. It's still being edited and worked on, so it's not quite ready. But if you send us an email at exploringmore@zoweh.org, I'll get you a pre-edit copy of the listening guide if you wanted to read through that and kind of try to utilize some of those tools moving into the holiday season.
It's kind of for small groups, but really it's listening. It's just listening.
Absolutely.
It doesn't, it's a relational guide.
It is.
That works really well for how to run, a small group of 3, 4, 5, 15 people. What is the code of
who's going to share when, or what's oversharing or too much sharing. But man, the ability to listen, there's so much gold in there that is applicable. I think, to our day-to-day life. Anyway, so shoot us an email if you want that.
And as one of the remedies for isolation in the holidays, that's a very courageous one to employ, would be, instead of waiting to be approached or waiting, which this is, again, is, I'm saying courageous. What would it be like to be one who can summon the strength and courage to engage and ask a few questions? And how are you, especially when you're catching up with family?
Right.
How are you? Start with the youngest people in your family.
That's a great idea.
Start with the kids. They aren't usually as historically marred or scorecarded.
Right.
And maybe you have that family member that you could sit with for a little while and take an interest in them. And that's so loving. That's what the thing about the listening guide is awesome, is it's how to love well by listening.
Yep.
The other thing I thought about with those who are really feeling isolated, because they are in some way, shape, or form. The holidays somehow presents, it feels like, more opportunities to step out of your story and into other people's stories.
Just because of proximity, or? Yeah,
and because of causes that are working. There are causes. Some churches have them.
Right.
Whether they're food pantries or they're doing the what's the
Secret Santa,
Secret Santas, the Christmas the shoe boxes.
Samaritan's
Purse. Yeah, look up Samaritan's Purse. There are ministries that are doing things, particularly in the holidays, because they know that is a unique and a great opportunity to step into other people's stories, and they need volunteers. They need folks who can. Stuff those things, pack those things, even set up those things in local churches or in spaces where, and if you don't have an organization around you, I'm amazed at how quickly you could become an organization by just saying, "Hey, I'm going to collect food and gift certificates and gently used clothing for the Durham Rescue Mission."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm just gonna and you tell your friends, you tell your coworkers, and you have just rallied people to get into some other people's stories.
That's right. Let's clean out our closets,
So, and again, if you're feeling lonely, you're feeling isolated as we go into holidays, that's going to take a burst of courage, a burst of energy but there's something about getting involved in other people's lives that benefits yours.
Sure it does. Yeah.
And I just want to bring some encouragement to those who might be in that space. So some other things that I'm learning to navigate this time is again about others. And there's something unique and significant in the kingdom of tending to your heart by tending to the hearts of others. It's just something that Jesus was about. And it's it's a way that the kingdom works. And so in this time of gift giving in his name, we're the gifts that we give to one another. If you can bring that in his name kind of up and into that space, whether it's talked about the wise men who showed up probably considerably later than at the manger, but they brought these gifts to the king, to the newborn king. So we give gifts in his name. What does that look like? And, as this podcast airs and it's maybe 2 or 3 weeks ahead of Christmas, again, what would it look like to make some things? What would it look like to sit down with your family members on a list? What does my sister love? What does my brother, what's my mom, what's my dad, what do they like to do? But thoughtful gifts, thoughtful gift giving. And it may not bring great returns this year.
Right.
But it's an investment in a way of seeing, of giving, of recognizing, and of offering, I think that can actually bring others with you into this space of gift giving. So
the trap we don't want to fall into, which I've fallen into before, is just like, in the context of our false self, we kind of arrange for love a little bit, so it's like, well, I'm going to get them this and their response is going to be this and that'll make me feel really great.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about. No, right? What we're talking about is just thinking about, sit down with a pen and a piece of paper, write down the person's name at the top of the page,
there you go,
and then write down several things that you come to mind when you think of that person.
So that's navigating in my mind. That's another navigating the
cross
holidays.
Off the ones that aren't kind.
That's right. And if I'm the enemy, I'm gonna somehow, when they unwrap it, or somehow when you give it to them, I'm gonna somehow underwhelm them. You just got to know that there are forces at work in this season, like we talked about earlier, that are at work.
Yeah.
And they know how hopeful things can be, and so how volatile that makes them. And then how, without a certain expectation of how you wanted them to respond, they don't. Oh my gosh, I'm never doing that again. Right. Be careful. Be careful. But the gift giving, I just want to continue to think about, this. I like the idea of a list and who they are. What do they love? What is it that you think of when you think of them? And
what were the toys they like to play with as a kid, even, and
if you're doing this, at the last minute, then now's a great time to start to think about, how do I want to navigate that? Yeah. How do I want to move and let this person know? Let's say it this way. You may not love them deeply, but you may have an opportunity to see them, to acknowledge them.
Yeah,
to let
and
them
offering
know.
something of this nature, it may release something in you.
Yeah.
right? It may end up being a gift to yourself.
Yeah.
To approach this person in that way. You know, you really don't get much more last minute than Christmas Eve, right? Before Christmas. And one of the things that we started a tradition, gosh, man, it goes back to when Stephen was like 4 or 5 years old. So it's been 20 plus years. But every Christmas Eve, we write Christmas letters to each other. And, you know, I write a letter to Sherry. I write a letter to Stephen. He writes one to me and Sherry, you know, and Sherry to me and to Stephen.
That's a good one.
And just writing a letter about, and, you know, sometimes the letters are, especially from our son, shout out to Stephen, Mom, you're the best mom ever. And I just love having you as a mom, you know, especially when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But what's funny is, you know, as he got older, those letters kind of changed into being really more heartfelt. And to your point, you know, he became able to see us more and more.
Yeah.
And wrote letters that indicated that to be true.
Yeah. Powerful. Wonderful.
Yeah, man. And so some years when I write to Sherry, it's a love letter. Sometimes it's about, you know, wow, what a year, you know, but always encouragement. And, you know, I love being on the journey with you and things like that. So, yeah, whether you're a letter writer or not, I would say it's a really cool exercise to kind of engage in.
Well, some people, I think, have a more natural. You're a good gift giver. I'm amazed at some of the things you come up with for people. But I think, too, that everybody could be a good gift giver. If they can think about, navigate through, you know, yeah, I can get him. I could get him slippers, or I could get him
an Amazon gift card or whatever.
But I think about paying attention to their life, to the person, and even asking them. You know, nothing wrong with somebody's Christmas list. It can give you some intel as to what they're wanting, what they're hopeful for, and the opportunity to get in there and give a gift in His name and love. Tell the quick story about. Let's see, this would be Christmas 7 years ago, the fishing.
Oh, at the Christmas party?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have our Zoweh Christmas party every year. And this year, I think at that time, what we would do is we would.
I want to say this is like 2017.
Yeah, it was right after Sherry and I joined the team. It might have been 16. But, you know, my birthday is in December also. So that year, I think what we had said we were going to do was we were going to draw names out, right? And then you're going to give a gift for that person, and that's what you were going to bring. Or we were doing the swap thing, right? Yeah, what do they call this?
You could get a new one, Secret Santa.
Yeah.
You could take what somebody else had gotten, and then they got to get another gift. So
you could steal a gift from somebody else or whatever. Yeah,
you had to do it in an order of whose turn it was. So anyway,
so. What we were told was, you know, bring a gift that's kind of for the couples.
Yeah.
So I think Sherry and I put this box together with 3 or 4 pieces of wood and some fire starter and some stuff for a date night, a romantic date night, you know, in front of the fire. Every other present that got opened was relating to fishing and fishing gear.
Fly fishing.
So it was like, it was bait. And then there was a fishing rod.
Fly fishing stuff.
It was all fly fishing stuff. And around the third person opens up the gift, and it's still, I was like, I don't understand. Did Greg Sailors buy all the gifts or something? What is happening? So then I think I said that. Yeah. And then the cat was kind of out of the bag, and it was like all those gifts were for me for my birthday, and it was all fishing gear.
Because we had a fly fishing trip scheduled for early spring.
Early spring, yeah. And I was just getting into it. I didn't have any of the gear, so it was really a kindness for you and Greg to pull the whole team into this kind of, you know, endeavor of surprising me in that moment. But it was really funny because I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
How come they got waiters?
Yeah. Why does he have rubber worms? What the heck is that about? Or strike indicators or whatever. It
was so fun. It was so fun. And it took somebody saying, you know what we ought to do? Mm-hmm. Right. And that one worked. That one hit, you know,
it was great.
I want to say these are kind of softly tossed, for you to hit when it comes to gift giving and how to navigate the holidays in that way, making it about, and it takes a certain kind of person to be able to overcome, some of the history, some of the obstacles.
Judgments.
I'm not asking you for you to restore, through a gift what some wounding thing that happened. That's not what I'm saying at all. But even that can take away from your ability to give something to somebody else because it's just, shrouds this whole thing.
That's right.
So, the other thing I thought about was ask Jesus.
Right. It's always a good plan.
Talk to Jesus about the holidays and how you're feeling.
Why is
what
this
you're
so
thinking.
hard?
And because there very well could be, and maybe very well is, some things that are only available in this season, and that because they're sore spots or because they're bruises, because they're wounding places, they're available to you in this season.
Oh man!
And what great gift would it be? To get healing through the holidays from God.
Well, this is one of the great things. Just biologically, physiologically, God created us to experience pain, and pain exists to save our lives. Mm-hmm. So that we know something's not right. And so there's different scenarios that can provoke different levels of pain to help you understand you need to address an issue, right? So coming into the holidays, being around your family, whatever your challenge might be in this context of this time of year, we were just talking about how Jesus sometimes he sees the bruise on your arm and he just goes, what is that? And pokes the bruise, but it helps us to understand that there's a bruise there to be poked.
Yeah.
And so then asking him, to your point, where did this bruise come from? Why does it still hurt?
Yeah.
Who put it there? Mm-hmm. And doing the exploration of trying to receive healing, and being provoked to move towards healing by this pain indication.
Yeah.
And this is a time of year where things can be provoked sometimes more than any other.
Yeah. So full circle back to the beginning, therefore be careful out there.
Right.
Navigating the holidays is something that doesn't have to just be endured. I think there's lots of gifts that can come, just to your point here at the end, that can come if we'll feel them, if we'll pay attention, if we'll take them to God and to be aware. So even to do all that, you have to take a position of being observant, of being willing to not just, feel some of that pain, but to know the invitation that's attached to it. There's that little card to SJ from Jesus.
Right.
What's this? Why do I have to open this?
A bruise in a box. Thanks.
Yeah.
No, but it really is. I mean, he does put all things together for our good.
And
so even things that hurt. So
approaching the holidays in a little different posture than we sometimes have gotten in the habit of doing.
Right.
Giving gifts, being aware that Jesus is the gift.
Yep.
And with him comes restoration, comes healing, comes the empathy, sympathy, understanding. And, I think for me, I want to find him in these holidays more than I ever have. I really want to look for him in so many of the traditions, the ritual things, the good things, but also not avoid, the way that person makes me feel or how I think they think about me.
Yeah.
Or what might be available this season to me because of the last 11 3/4 months of work that I've done. Now I get to bring it into this arena.
Yeah. I'm just writing this down because I don't want to forget it. Find Jesus in the hard places. You can find Jesus walking on a beach.
Yeah.
And it's almost a softball, right? But finding Jesus at the top of a really tough path that you have to hike up, or deep in a cave, or
because you've got to see
like that.
the mother that has the mother wounds and the father that has the father wounds, or the
it's
family.
Worth the effort to go into those hard spaces, man.
And really avoiding them is a pretty good plan. Yeah, it's not going away.
Yeah,
avoiding it is just not a good plan.
Right.
And to think that it's only
got to go get that filling taken care of.
To think that it's only going to be there in the holidays, or be there with mom or dad or whoever they are.
Right.
Is not how it works.
No.
You are carrying that into other places. And I like what you said at the beginning. Therefore, I think you can carry some of the good work and the good things that Jesus has done these other times into some of these old places and see what's waiting there for you.
Yeah.
So that's my hope for navigating some of these holiday times.
It's been a great conversation, man. And I think, we have Robin and Sherry in here, and maybe some of the other guys on the team, it'll be great to hear their perspectives as we continue through this series in navigating the holidays. But thanks for watching and listening. And if you would, leave us a rate and review on your podcast platform of choice, or right here on YouTube. And leave us a comment. Send us an email, exploringmore@zoweh.org, and we'll get back to you. If you want that listening guide or anything else you have questions about, just shoot us an email.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, SJ.
Yeah, man. Well done.
Enjoyed exploring this with you, and we'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.